You have to be real. And of course, our hearts go out to the victims in Kentucky for every one of these situations. But we cannot allow them to emotionally hijack the narrative. You must use reason when you look at these things. And using reason, we're able to make the very simple judgment and argument. A free society comes with a cost, and that cost is worth it. Liberty is worth it.
That just sounds like your opinion, bro, because apparently free society and your freedom comes with you not living to see it, according to Charlie Kirk. This is coming off of his little performance where a crowd was cheering for him when he said, we're not going to do anything about gun violence. And in fact, we shouldn't. As a matter of fact, you guys should die soon. And everyone went, yeah, that's right. In order for me to live free, I should die. That's the approach. By the way, did you guys listen to what he said here at the beginning, how he said his heart goes out to the families and his victims? But we shouldn't let emotional people, victims and families of victims, get in the way of us continuing to collect that sweet paycheck. That's what he's saying openly and blatantly in your faces. As you're mourning, he's giving you two big middle fingers. As a matter of fact, he's so sure of his statement of how his heart goes out. I want you guys to watch how he's reading a script about how his heart goes out, because that's what he needs to read, because he can't even come up with those words himself. Watch that part again.
And of course, our hearts go out to the victims in Kentucky for every one of these situations. But we cannot allow them.
We can't allow them. My heart goes out to the people of Kentucky who were shot. That's how much he cares about what's going on with these folks. As a matter of fact, let's let him continue with how he even got to this point. Here's some bad ideas.
As I said at my show, isn't it interesting how there's no mass shootings at gun shows? And if there was, it'd be neutralized in just a second. It's not the technology that is doing it. You can go to Israel. In Israel, they have an armed citizenry. They know how to use the guns. That is very safe. I feel very safe in Israel. Every other street corner has a 19-year-old on a date with an AR-15 or an M16 around his back. It's just normalized. Now you might say, oh, Charlie, I don't want to live in that kind of militarized society. I'm afraid we're already heading towards that. And I would rather have citizens have that ability where it's decentralized than just the government have that ability where it's centralized. So you must be clear about the purpose of the Second Amendment. The purpose of the Second Amendment is there to protect all the other amendments. That only the government having the guns is immoral and it's dangerous and it's wrong, it's totalitarian, and it's tyrannical.
Totalitarian, it's tyrannical. If the government only has the guns, they might go murdering us every week in bunches. But instead, we'd like to arm every citizen in the country so that we can do it ourselves, because that's what's happening. They like to pull this wool over your eyes to be like, you have to stay prepared, because when the government comes for you, you have to have your guns ready to shoot each other. Which, by the way, before the government comes for you, have your guns ready and get to shooting each other, because the government wants you dead. If the government wants you dead, it's working, because we're killing each other at a higher rate every time we do one of these things. I saw you shaking your head there, Waz. I'll let you jump in here.
I mean, this guy is clearly trying to lead the sheep to slaughter. This concept that the people are going to rise up with their weapons and take down the U.S. military, the military that they spend trillions of dollars on literally every single year. You're going to do it with your little pea shooter and your hunting rifle is absurd. I mean, that's just an absurdity. You couldn't defeat the NYPD with that crap, much less the stuff that they got like drones. And that's before we even talk about like, we don't even need to get into the stuff the deep state could do to
it's
you.
Cartoonish.
It's just crazy. This like he's literally just playing with these folks. Just this idea that you know the Second Amendment is there so you could take on the government because it's protecting your right to free speech to own a gun. It's laughable. It's the most simpleton interpretation of those laws that exist.
Well, that's you said it's laughable, and the reason why you may say that is because many times they laugh when they're saying it. So that's just Charlie Kirk. He's just a pundit. He just talks. He only affects many of these conservatives in their legislation. We've seen that many times. As a matter of fact, just a side note, this whole thing happened with Governor Abbott there trying to pardon the guy that murdered the Black Lives Matter protester in 2020. He's getting pressure from pundits to tell them to do it. That's how this whole thing works. These pundits who have the ears of all these folks then put pressure on politicians from their party, and then they go doing their bidding. Here's one of the politicians from their party. So as he grins and talks about this, here's Matt Gaetz.
We, of course, want to take time to mourn the loss of innocent life, but we should not wait in acting to prevent these frequent aggressive acts from happening in the future. Democrats want to blame guns, of course, but we know it's not that simple. It's misguided, even. Your grandparents used to be able to order mail-order automatic weapons, and when the Second Amendment was written, the American people, such as they were, could own cannons. No mass shootings back then.
Your own cannons. I mean, I'm just saying. So is this a part of the joke part about this approach, or is this something you're saying should happen? Because your grandparents used to be able to mail order some machine guns, stuff like that. So what does that have to do with this again? Oh, there was no mass shootings there. I don't know. Were there malls then? Or were there also people? There was definitely mass murders then. They would definitely kill certain groups of people. What else your grandparents did was they targeted certain oppressed humans and killed them indiscriminately, and the law backed them up. So let's go back to 1930s when your grandparents were getting guns in the mail. Or let's go further back when cannons were available, because that'll help. They don't take this seriously. Those types of points are not taken seriously in their own brains. They're filling some space and they're just talking. And they hope that you nod along and go, yeah, that's right. Back in the olden days when cannons were available to everyone, it didn't happen. And then they leave it at that until your ass is dead. And then they laugh and collect that next paycheck. As a matter of fact, the ATF said this, pointed this out on their website, because the National Firearms Act from 1934 was looking to end this gang violence from gangsters. I'm sorry, no, not the minority gangs. The gangsters from back in the day that were fighting over prohibition and things like that, and black markets, things that they were selling that were no longer legal. One of those things was machine guns that they had, silencers, sawed-off shotguns. You ready to bring that back, Matt? You know what? As a matter of fact, there's more, because some of these firearms that were included in the National Firearm, their act that they were banning these types of things were also listed. Machine guns, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, suppressors, silencers, and destructive devices. Maybe things close to like bombs and things like that. Still, Matt Gaetz, as he was ranting and talking about all of his great solutions, which again, he doesn't take seriously. Never take this seriously, because if you ask him the next question of, so how does this get implemented and how does it look later? They don't have an answer, because that looks like hell. Here's him talking more.
The Democrats are purposefully riling up their nutty shock troops in hopes that they will terrorize normal Americans into submission. It's the Democratic Party and Big Pharma that are unleashing the crazies on you, and nobody seems to have a solution for it. So here's one. We need to reopen the asylums. There are severely mentally ill people who do not have a right to wander our streets seeking and selecting who they are going to terrorize. Whether there is criminal culpability or not, there is a permanent element of society that is dangerous. And it does not make us more just or more compassionate to have them walking amongst the rest of us, because then you see the type of loss of life that we've seen too frequently from these acts of violence. Now, subject to due process, of course, in our Constitution, we have to put some people away. And that might not be politically correct to say, but it is the truth that we encounter, especially in a world in which we're getting so many people chemically addicted. Good people have a right to exist in the country without wondering if some crazy leftist or mentally ill individual lurking around the corner is about to post up and kill you, maybe even at your local bank, like we saw in Kentucky.
If you're not seeing where this is going, Waz, it's one of those things where we're starting to lean this, as they did with the Tennessee shooting. So those Democrats are unleashing their crazies onto society. He said purposely unleashing these crazies onto society, because I guess Democrats have a bunch of crazies locked up in some kind of room, and they unleash one every week to go and shoot up folks in random places, because the plan is to terrorize everyone, because the left is coming to terrorize you. So his solution is open up asylums and put these crazies along with his political enemies in these asylums, prisons, work camps, whatever you want to call them, lock them away from the rest of us good folks in society. How do you determine that? Charlie Kirk and Matt Gaetz apparently determine who are the good ones and who are the bad ones. And according to them, it's those damn political enemies of theirs. Weird how that works.
Yeah, I don't. Charlie Kirk wants to put a gun in everybody's hand, and Matt Gaetz thinks that we should lock up people who he deems to be "quote unquote" crazy. I mean, if they want to have a conversation about having a more robust, perhaps healthcare system where people could get mental health care from early ages and have that be, actually of a quality that would be able to actually combat the problems that we face in this country. Let's have that conversation. Absolutely. Charlie Kirk saying that the cost of freedom is that, every now and again, little kids should be absolutely slaughtered and mowed down. And he says this unironically. And he thinks that, like, people should take him seriously. It's absurd. Nobody actually believes this.
These are the folks that I guess some politicians, some people who talk in political circles think we're supposed to negotiate with. Let's come to a middle ground. What's the middle ground between let's stop murdering, I'm not even going to say just kids, anyone in society, and folks who said we need, our solution is to bring cannons back and also jail our political enemies. Where's the middle ground? I want you guys to try and find that middle ground.